We are on our way up to where we're shooting our webisode. Gotta earn it today.
Straight up.
Stay tuned.
Hey everybody. It's Rachel
And Chris.
from
Simply See the World.
Today we are shooting in beautiful, beautiful Dubrovnik, Croatia, and we're actually standing on the balcony of our Airbnb. So not a bad view, I would say. And today's topic, we're going to give you some really awesome tips and hacks on finding an Airbnb where you can have a view like this for not much money. So stay tuned and see what our tips and tricks are for finding the best Airbnbs.
We'll see you right after the intro. Stick around.
Many miles from home, reading the scripture from the Rolling Stone. In a rock and roll rapture, we'll be driving in our van. Suddenly we'll disappear to the promised land.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at Simply See the World webisode series. This is webisode 3. If you haven't seen the first 2, they are listed in the description below. But hang with us, watch this one, and you can always go back and see those too. So today, we're going to be talking about some of the best tips and hacks to get excellent Airbnbs all around the world in the locations of your dreams for a price that you'll love. So stay tuned with us today. We're going to get into that. If you're new to the channel, just a quick little bit about us. We are from Indianapolis, Indiana, and actually little towns outside that. But we were working 9 to 5, a house, cars, all the trappings of the modern world. And we were just looking for more. We knew we wanted to travel, and so we started doing it. We sold all our stuff and took a big leap, and we've been on the road for almost 10 months now.
It's crazy.
And so there's lots of fun stories that we want to share with you. So be sure to like and subscribe below. So we have just arrived here in Dubrovnik, but for the last month, we were in Saranda, Albania, way down in the south of Albania, and we are right across from
Corfu, Greece.
So every morning we had a kind of similar view, just the islands out there were a different country. So we had a lot of fun, so stay tuned for lots of content about Albania and our time in Corfu. Let's get to what we promised you. Top tips and hacks for finding great Airbnbs around the world and saving money and getting great amenities that you want. So what do you think would be the number one thing people would want to consider?
Well, so it depends on how flexible you are. I'm going to give a little disclaimer that we might travel a little differently than most people. So we like to stay in a place for at least 2 weeks, just so we can get a feel for it. We work from home, so we look for a space where we can do that comfortably. We're also on a tight budget, so we are trying to save as much money as possible. But for example, our Saranda, Albania Airbnb, we got for $230 for the entire month with a view like this. It was crazy for an entire month. Wi-Fi, all the amenities that you could even want.
Yeah.
For $230.
$230.
Our way of finding that was we were really flexible. We knew we wanted to come to the Balkans.
Yeah.
But we didn't really have too much of a preference. We kind of just wanted to see what it was all about, and then we could know where we wanted to come back to in the future.
We knew we weren't going to see it all, so it was just like, what's out there? We kind of started really big in the funnel and worked our way towards what we chose to stay, where we chose to stay.
So for us, it was kind of weather-based. We didn't want to be somewhere super cold. We were ready for some coastal action, so we looked on the coast and we're like, well, let's go as far south as we can. It'll be the warmest because it's January. And so we picked Saranda and we found a great deal, but we were extremely flexible. So the first tip is, if you can be flexible, you're going to find a much better deal than if you're rigid. And I know some people's travel plans don't allow for that.
Flexible in location, flexible in time.
Another thing to consider is on-season versus off-season. So we are in off-season now in the Balkans. It's a summer destination, and like I said, it's January. So we haven't had to fight any of the crowds. We are getting off-season pricing, which is sometimes half the price of what you would get if you were to come in the summer. So there are lots of pros to being somewhere off-season. Yesterday we went up to the museum here, and it was free because it was off season. You would have had to pay for it if you came in the summer, and you probably would have had to fight a ton of people to get up there.
It was crazy. Like from just to let you know, here in Dubrovnik, 4 or 5 cruise ships worth of people arrive every day
Every day.
in the summer.
And unload all their people at one time.
It's chaos and gridlock. And when we were up at the museum looking down on Old Town, we're gonna go to Old Town this weekend, but we haven't made it there yet. There was like 6 people walking on the street down there.
Empty.
So that's the benefit. Now, the water's cold. You're not going to necessarily have a beach day. There are drawbacks, but you'll have to kind of determine if going on season or off season. You know, what are your goals? Is it to have a beach day and lay in the sun, or hit the slopes in the winter and the mountains? Then you probably want to be on season. But if you just want to see a place and experience it, there's lots of benefits to off-season travel.
Yeah, we definitely are finding our love for off-season travel. One of the biggest cons is sometimes things aren't open during the off-season. So if there's something you really want to see in a place, just make sure it is open when you're going to be there. But other than that, we've found mostly pros to coming to places off-season.
So you're thinking, okay, I hear it, off-season, on-season, but what's that mean for Airbnb? It means it changes the price immensely. So let's hop back into the Airbnb side of things.
So if you want to go to a place and you know it's going to be expensive, try to go during the week. Also, that is things are cheaper during the week. Even if you're someplace on season, it's going to be cheaper during the week. And then go to the less expensive places on the weekend.
Yeah.
That always, again, doesn't work depending on your planning, but something to keep in mind if you're wanting to save some money and you're flexible.
Yeah, and less crowds, especially at big attractions.
Right, exactly. So flexibility, huge. What about getting different discounts depending on how long you stay?
Great question. She set me right up. So what you'll notice with Airbnb, and I guess we should tell you at this point, we really like Airbnb because we've had fantastic customer service with them. And everybody has their opinions on Airbnb and big corporations in general, but we have nothing but positive things to say. We used to run an Airbnb back in Indianapolis, and they were fantastic for us as hosts and for our guests, and us as guests now. We've just enjoyed them and we've stuck with them.
The website interface is extremely awesome.
Yeah.
We have communicated with guests that we don't even speak the same language with because their translation application is just...
Yeah, it's actually Google Translate.
Awesome.
Just within the interface.
So we have only used Airbnb, not to say that some of the other hosting sites aren't just as good or better possibly, and you can leave that in the comments below if there's
we'd
something
love to hear that.
you prefer. But that's why we're just talking about Airbnb today.
Yeah. So yes, with Airbnb, there's 2 primary types of discounts that are available. And you'll want to play with this, especially if you're flexible with your time, in that you can price compare amongst the same place. So I'll get to it. Weekly discounts. If you're planning on staying 4 or 5 days, do you think you could kick it up to a week? Because a lot of places do have weekly discounts, sometimes 10, 15%, or maybe more, sometimes less, and sometimes none. So you might not get a weekly discount, but it's at least worth seeing if you could, because you might get 7 days for the price of 4, maybe,
Right.
Now, the thing that we often do, since we're kind of slow mads, we often utilize the month discount, and this one is
Huge.
the real. It's the heavyweight. You can get month discounts at Airbnbs that are maybe up to 70%,
It's ridiculous.
maybe more, but that's kind of rare. But still, a good 20% almost always on a month discount. So play with that, and just change your start and end date and seeing what it looks like. Now, the minimum amount of days in Airbnb that you can get a monthly discount is 28 days. So not coincidentally, we end up staying 28 days at places because we want to see several places during our travels, but we also want to take advantage of these really good prices. So
A quick note about that though is if you do the monthly discount, you cannot cancel your stay. So
yeah, you can, but the first 28 days
but you
are
don't get
still
any money
charged.
back. Right. So you can't really cancel it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
right.
you can not show up, but you're going to still pay
Yeah,
for it.
hypothetically, if you book 2 months, you would get the second month back. But Yeah, you'd have to eat that month, so yeah, you
So,
basically can't.
Just make sure you're sure, because we booked a little far ahead before and been like, oh, maybe we're going to do something different, but we were kind of locked in. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind when you commit to a long stay somewhere.
Yeah.
But the discounts are crazy good.
Good
That's how
point.
we got the Saranda Albania one so cheap. I think it was like a 60% monthly discount. So something else to consider is what type of place do you want? So you can get, with Airbnb, you can look at entire places, which means there's nobody else in your space. You can get shared, which means you have your own room, but you share like a bathroom and a kitchen with other guests or the homeowners potentially. You can even get a shared room where you actually share a room with somebody.
Yeah, kind of like a hostel.
Kind of like a hostel. And the more shared space you get, typically the cheaper the space is. For us, we work from home, so we like to have our own space, and that is something that we're willing to pay just a little bit more for. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to play with pricing. If you're just going to be somewhere and you're not planning on spending much time at the location, then maybe look at a shared space and save yourself
Right.
some money. And another quick tip is a lot of times hostels seem like they're the cheapest option, and they are typically if you're a solo traveler.
Right.
But we've found as couple travelers that hostels are not always cheaper. Typically, if you are a single traveler, they're cheaper. But just a quick pro tip, because we've done a lot of price comparing over the time, thinking,
Absolutely.
hostels, and then
Yeah.
find an Airbnb cheaper. So
Yeah, a lot of times we'll kind of divide and conquer on price quoting. Like one person will get on Hostel World, and there's a link to that in the description below. We really like Hostel World. It's just a one-stop shop, has all the local hostels, and basically just, what's the cheapest available or what's a decent amount of amenities or privacy that for a price. Get that price, then head over to Airbnb, do some searching there, and that way you can kind of compare.
yeah.
So both of those links are in the description below. What's important to you? Is it privacy? Is it security? Is it quiet? Is it being away from city center? Is it being steps from the biggest location?
Right.
Those are things that you should consider, because
Yeah, so a hidden cost, you have to think about what other things come with not being directly close to a place. How much is public transportation? If you're going to spend $5 to $10 every day just getting to and from where you want to go,
or time.
or time, then you may consider just actually paying a little bit more for your Airbnb and staying within walking distance. So, the cost of the Airbnb is higher, but when you add in the cost of transportation and just the hassle sometimes of getting from place to place,
Yeah.
it might be worth it to just spend that extra money.
Speaking of hidden costs, we've also seen some units that you're allowed a certain amount of electricity or whatever utility per day, and they monitor it, and if you exceed it, then you have to pay for that, or you're maybe not even given a ration of such a utility and you just have to pay for it. So
Yeah.
without the local knowledge of knowing exactly what that kilowatt hour or unit of electricity is, you might consider a place that just includes it. It's all the devil's in
Yeah.
the details
Well,
on
and
those
same
things.
with internet too. Make sure it says unlimited internet. Sometimes they
Right.
throttle it, and if you work from home, that doesn't work.
Exactly.
And then two other cost savers, hidden cost savers, is getting a kitchen and making sure that there is some way to cook your own food, because as much fun as it is to eat out all the time, it really adds up.
Yeah.
Quick
Story about that. We were in San Sebastian, Spain. Beautiful Airbnb overlooking a plaza, and it was a great unit, but they didn't even have so much as a kettle to boil water. And it is silly enough. This is how silly it is, but it does matter. Without the ability to boil water, we couldn't make coffee. And I mean, we carry an AeroPress coffee maker.
We need coffee.
And we love AeroPress coffee makers. If you are curious about them, we have a link below and also a review on simplyseetheworld.com about it. But we couldn't make coffee, and it ended up costing us probably an extra $30 or $40 during our time in San Sebastian just going out for coffee in the morning. I mean, of course we could have gone without, but caffeine,
Right.
So just be aware of that. You don't always save money by saving money, if you know what I mean.
The other thing is laundry. So if you're going to be at a place for a couple weeks to a month, like we typically are, then
Yeah.
being able to do laundry in your unit is really priceless.
Yeah.
Laundromats can get expensive, and just the time where you have to go and actually sit there and watch your stuff when you could be working from home or going out and exploring.
It's always a compromise. What are you willing to compromise on? What's your non-negotiables? Be sure to read those details and get that.
Well, and over time, staying multiple Airbnbs, we found that we really value a place where we want to hang out.
Yeah.
Because you can spend, if you're not happy where you're at, you're going to go out and then you're going to spend money just trying to be outside of the place you're paying for because you don't
Right.
like it.
Little sanity breaks, basically.
Right. So we have found we really value outdoor space. So we always look for a place with a balcony if we can, because now we can just sit out here with a glass of wine and we're not going out spending money, and we would be sitting somewhere at a restaurant looking at the same view. So there is it's worth putting a little extra money sometimes into a place that you want to stay, and ultimately that is going to save you money by not going out all the time. Because if you're at a miserable Airbnb, it's miserable.
It's miserable.
So we got this place for
$415 for 2 weeks.
2 weeks in one of the prime tourist destinations in the Balkans.
Like your cruise ship lands right there.
So it's a pretty sweet deal. If you think about like getting an Airbnb in the States, you're going to spend $70, $80, $150 a night depending on where you're staying. And we got I think it was like 17 days here for $400. So pretty good deal. So we've gone through all of our secret tips and hacks, and like I said, this might not apply to every trip that you take, but I know that you can get something out of this that might save you a little money. So quick recap.
Yeah.
Being flexible.
On location and time of the week or month or seasonality.
Yeah.
Okay.
How long can you stay? Week, month discounts.
Yeah.
Entire place versus shared space.
Mm-hmm.
Hidden cost, making sure you're keeping in mind all of the other things that eventually add up. So hopefully these tips were really helpful for you. And if you have other tips you want to share, please put them in the comments below. We would love to hear, because as much as we like trial and error, we try to avoid error as much as possible.
All right, so now it is time for our next segment of the week, and it is Culture by the Glass, where we try a local beverage or a beverage significant to the place. We discuss it and give you some tasting notes. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Sure.
Today we are going to be sampling a Riesling from Croatia. Now, Riesling is a grape varietal that's from the Rhine River region of Germany. This is not grown there. This is grown here in Croatia, in the northeast of Croatia. So Hungary's just north of it, Serbia's just east of it, and Bosnia-Herzegovina is just south of this region. And it's a 2018 varietal. And the tasting notes on this is it's supposed to be served between 8 and 10 degrees Celsius, which is just perfect for today's weather. So we didn't even have to put it in the fridge. We're just already at that temperature. So let's take a look at it.
Sure.
Oh, I don't know if you can see that, but just ever so greenish tint. Let's take a smell.
Ooh. It's fruity.
It smells like it will taste like a Chardonnay.
Tart.
But it doesn't taste like a Chardonnay.
No, it's very crisp and fruity, pear, appley.
Yeah, it's
Not-
less sweet than typical
Right.
Rieslings that I'm aware
Agreed. Now, a lot of times Rieslings we don't really drink because we have a pretty dry palate, and Rieslings are a little sweet for our palate, but this is pretty delicious. It's
Yeah.
nice and crisp and clean, and not too sugary or syrupy tasting.
of. Yeah, it's super clean. It would be awesome. I'm thinking of a fish filleted, maybe lightly pan fried, scored skin, a little drizzle of lemon juice on it.
Now you're just getting crazy.
That sounds
That does sound good.
delicious. And this would be perfect for that.
And I think this bottle cost like $4.
Yeah,
So pretty good pricing for the wine.
yeah. And it's actually good. Albania, we love you.
We love you, Albania.
For all the grapes you grow down there, your wines aren't very good. I'm sorry.
Your
But-
Rocky's good, but
Your Rocky's awesome.
but the wine, we did not find a ton that we loved with a decent price point.
Right.
Yeah, we were spoiled by Spain because the wine there is
Yeah.
phenomenal and like almost free.
It's really cheap.
So we've been trying to find comparable wines at the similar price point, but I'm impressed with this one.
Actually, in webisode 1, we try a Spanish wine.
Yeah.
So check that out if you're curious about white wine from Spain. You know, if you're liking the tips and the fun that we're having, be sure to like and subscribe below. We're going to hold on to these beverages for the next segment, which is Surprise Question of the Week, where we ask each other questions without knowing what the question will be in advance. So, without further ado, would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I'll go first, because when he thought of his question earlier, he laughed, so I'm a little nervous about it. So I'll start this one. So, we have been traveling now for 10 months, which seems insane.
Yeah.
Out of all the places that we've been, which one was the most surprising for you? You didn't expect it to be as beautiful or as cool as it was.
Wow, that is a great question.
Thank you.
They've all been surprising in their own ways. So let me work through this a little bit. I'm gonna offer up one that is kind of weird, and I'll say this: I didn't expect Paris to be as cool as it was. Now, back in 2002, I went to Paris as a high schooler, and did all the touristy stuff, and that's fun, and it's a great place to do that. But this time, we actually intentionally, and because there was a labor strike, didn't do any touristy things, and instead walked around local neighborhoods. Highlight of which is Little India. Fantastic, totally fun to walk around in. Just a sensual experience. You can smell it, you can see the vibrant colors. It was a wonderful place. And then there's a canal close to there that was fun to walk along. So it was fun to go to Paris and do nothing, do none of the tourist things, and walk around Gare du Nord train station as well in that area. So probably that was surprising. I actually liked Paris this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't expect that answer.
I didn't either.
All right, your turn.
I'm gonna ask you a question about some of the realities of being, a road warrior like we are. We're nomads, and sometimes you don't have the amenities or creature comforts that you have back home or readily available, or they just might be, a week down the road, so you kind of wait. So tell me a little bit, Rachel, about laundry, hygiene, some of those concerns, but tell me a little bit about your experience with some of the, basically lowering your threshold on how clean you have been able to be.
So,
Let me be more pointed. What's the most days you've gone without showering due to travel logistics since we've left?
well, so probably 3 days is my
Okay.
max.
Wow, that's pretty conservative, actually.
Yeah, probably 3 days is the max for not showering.
What about laundry? What's maybe tell us about some length of time that it's been between doing laundry where you're like, wow, it's kind of embarrassing. I can remember at the end of our time at Santander, because we were sink washing, and I was over it after a month of sink washing. First world problems.
His family came to visit for Christmas, and it was awesome. And the very first Airbnb we stayed at with them was gorgeous, and it had a washer and a dryer. And we thought we were in heaven. And it's not like we go run around and get all dirty and then they just don't wash our clothes, but you wear them a few times. And so they were all super excited about the Airbnb, and I feel like we just stood in front of the washer in a dryer too, because your clothes feel different after they've been through a dryer than when they've been air dried.
Yeah,
so,
Nuremberg was kind to us. We got all clean.
We washed every piece of clothing.
We appreciate you all watching, and hopefully you've gotten some valuable tips about Airbnb, what to look for, and great ways to find awesome places for a good price. And hopefully you've learned something about Croatian wine in our Culture by the Glass segment. And then finally, just gotten to know us a little bit with our surprise question of the week segment. Just to remind you, we are on Instagram at Simply See the World, Pinterest at Simply See the World, of course our website at simplyseetheworld.com, and all of these links are in the description below. Please join us on our socials. We're posting fun stuff from Dubrovnik currently, and many other places that we've grown to love and we want to share stories about with you. And cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
Be sure to comment below with anything you want to say about today's episode or just general comments.
Or questions. If there's something you want to know about that during our travels, we try to tell you what we think is helpful, but if you tell us what you want to know, that's even easier. So
yeah, we'd
let
love
us know.
to make that content.
Yes.
So cheers to you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Cheers.
Cheers. We are on our way up to where we're shooting our webisode. Gotta earn it today.
Straight up.
Stay tuned.
We're up on this hill and it just got a little windy, so sorry for the noise, but we thought the view would be worth it. So we'll see how it goes.
That could stay cheaper for a month than for 2 weeks, for example.
Yeah.
Sorry. Wow.
It's windy!
Wow. Wow.
Around and explore a city, but sometimes we just want to chill. So we'll pay a little more for a balcony.
The weather is so bad.
Finding a place to shoot a webisode is a little tricky because we want to have a great view. Our balcony, the lighting was bad, so here we are, and who knew that we were going to have a lot of wind. This is going to be really funny.
It's pretty ridiculous.
We could have shot from here, our webisode. My husband said there's too many shadows. So we climbed all the way up the hill to get blown away by the wind when we could have just sat on our balcony. I'm just saying, I had the better idea.
You're right, dear.
I know. You know?
You're right, dear. Learn that one, guys.
Because it's true. Hi.
Hello, this is Chris from Simply See the World.
And Rachel from Simply See the World.
Okay, let's see what that looks like. Holy cow, the microphone's out of the shot. Christ and a beep!
Oh my god.
Well, yeah.
I love you. Oh my god.
Just to remind you,
Awesome. We did it.